It's good to have you join us on Off the Press. This is the aspect of the show where we get to take a look at the national dailies and, of course, look at the stories that are on them and analyze it. And I'm not here this morning alone. Of course, I have Daniel Odupe. He's a legal practitioner. It's good to have you join us, Daniel.
Pleasure to be here.
And, of course, I have Ife Orji. She's also a legal practitioner. It's good to have you join us, Ife.
Thank you very much.
We have a room full of lawyers. How did your legal event go over the week? I mean, I think it ended yesterday.
Yes, it did. It was mayhem. So just imagine a convention of so that many lawyers.
Whole Nigeria was like in Lagos, because that stretch of Eco hotels, nobody could pass through
Yes, it was jam-packed. It was very exciting, yes.
Okay, interesting. Well, our first newspaper this morning is the Vanguard. Let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper, and the top stories. The biggest story here says governors re-strategize to contain menace. Governors re-strategize to contain menace. And the top of the Vanguard newspaper, right, tackle those painting Nigerians black on social media. Liz Ajori urges the federal government. And still on the top of the Vanguard newspaper, Imo government orders arrest of ex-governor Rochas Okorocha, and that drama never ends. Of course, still on the top of the Vanguard newspaper, border closure, 150 billion naira rice smuggled into Nigeria this year, says Repan. Okay, so our border controls are not necessarily controlling anything. And finally, the bigger story, federal government commences partial closure of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway on September 2. I think a lot of Lagosians would not like this, but that has to be our reality. And of course, the big picture on the Vanguard newspaper is the president of Nigeria flanked by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe as they talk bilateral issues. So I'll start with Daniel Odupe. Daniel, a lot of people have said that President Buhari's trip to Japan might benefit us, greatly. But there are also people who are saying that we're being beggarly all over again, and our debt, our foreign debt and even our internal debts are rising on a daily.
Well, embarking on trips like this, in my opinion, can mean either of two things. It can be to strengthen bilateral relations, and by that you mean trade and what have you, and that can only be a good thing. That should be a 50-50 thing, so we have resources, we want you to bring experts, we want you to train our experts, we want to, continue to do business with you. That's a good thing. However, the trend over the years has always been a case of our president and our government trying to ask for what you call loans and, bailouts, basically, funds that will help. And that really is, I guess, are the things that the experts, have challenges with that. There needs to be a long-term solution to things like this. We cannot continue. I remember when he visited the Chinese president, during the China-African summit, then, was asking
Xi Jinping.
Absolutely, was asking for funds for the Mambila Power project. We keep going on and on. We need to get to the point that we move away from being a beggarly nation. We have a lot of things to offer.
But does that not boil down to how well we manage these funds? Let me bring the question to you, Ife, because if for example, I'm your sister, and every time I come to you asking for money to do this, money to do that, and you never really see what I do with that money, would you keep giving me the money?
I think you make a very good point. At the end of the day, right, what we do with money that's given to us is critical to understanding how to proceed and how to develop as a nation. So it's we can just use a basic principle. You give me money to buy bread. With the money you give me to buy bread, I open a factory, a bakery, and I'm able to make more bread, and I'm able to sell the bread and get more money. That is a simple economic strategy that Nigeria should adopt. But
why do you think that we are unable, seemingly, to handle the funds that we keep asking for?
I don't think it's for lack of intelligent, capable people to handle them. I just think that the right people are not being put in the right positions in this country, and that we found time and time again that is always going to hinder us as a nation. So I think the best strategy is always to make sure that debt is not a big, it should not be a big deal. In any country, every country, even the most developed countries, have very high debt profiles.
Indebted, I know.
They all have very high debt profiles. The question is, how the money that you have taken out, the loans that have been taken out, how are they being utilized? Are they making commercially viable decisions with money or loans that have been given? And that's the big question there.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to This Day newspaper, our second newspaper this morning. A top story in the This Day newspaper says, "We're all leaving no stone unturned. PNID 9.6 billion judgment debt, says federal government. We're leaving no stone unturned." They are considering negotiated settlement. Senior advocates divided on Nigeria's options. And of course, still under that story, it's been revealed how poor coordination landed Nigeria into trouble. And this morning, the Minister of Information has come quickly to sit on that story, saying that, oh, Nigerians should not say that the government or the federal government did not follow up or do due process or due diligence to that issue. But then it is being revealed that poor coordination landed us in trouble. It's a big story. I want us to just sit on this story. I'll start with you, Ife. 9.6 billion. It's no, I mean, it's not
mind-boggling. I mean,
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And there's so many opportunities we passed off on that we could have somewhat negotiated this money to be
let me give you a scale in terms of, let me give you a big picture understanding of this amount. This is what basically we had as money that we use to service. This is like probably about 4 times what we've used from 2015 to 2018 to service our debt in Nigeria. And our debt that was serviced is typically serviced at a percentage of 20% of the entire national budget. So you can imagine a country, this is a critical national issue, because it means that in the next 4 years, if we held on to the judgment debt, right, that we're able to service our country's debt for the next 4 or 5 years. You know, so this is, I mean, I think we're actually I don't even think we're giving it the platform that it even deserves in terms of our understanding. And I can understand why people would think that we did not follow, we did not follow up, and we didn't give it as much attention as it deserved, especially within government. So.
As the average Nigerian, you probably wouldn't have known about this situation if it didn't become a big issue. Without the judgment, so many Nigerians would have not been aware.
Absolutely.
And then he talks about, it brings to bear the issue of transparency in governance. Here we are, we're going to be suffering as a result of this that we mostly didn't know about.
Absolutely. I think the issue of transparency is probably the biggest lesson from this saga, in my opinion, because, you know, I mean, the caption is really funny. We're leaving no stone unturned. But the truth is that they've left many stone unturned, you know, because, I mean, if you follow the story properly, you know, the arbitral award was given in 2017. That was 2 years ago. You know, this matter did not come to the public domain until 2 years later, after this guy got a judgment to enforce the arbitral award. Wow. That goes to show you that we were not diligent enough. We were too relaxed. I mean, you know, I was following the story and I realized that, you know, at some point in the course of the matter, you know, there was no one to represent Nigeria.
We literally didn't show up.
And when you eventually showed up, the excuse we gave was that, oh, there's a new government and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And then, of course, the court didn't buy that. Again, the issue of not appointing your ministers, we didn't have an attorney general, you know that window of that time when the presidency just refused to appoint. You know, when we say the implications of things like these are there, this is what we mean. These are the things that, so, you know, there are huge lessons. And my biggest worry is that who knows how many more contracts of, you know, similar contracts like this, you know, because this is going to embolden guys who have things like this to just come up and you know.
I agree with him. It'll definitely open up the floodgates.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So hence my question. What should we be taking from this? Because whether we like it or not, this is what it is. It is what it is. As lawyers, I might not be right, but is there a basis to appeal? Would we ever be able to get anything less than this? But going forward, how can governments handle these kind of issues? I think
ultimately it's just don't even get to the point where you're going to court in the first place. Go back, do your management, your house management within the country. Make sure that you are appointing the right people for the right positions. Again, I mean, that is just always our story in Nigeria. Appoint the right people for the right positions. Make sure that everything goes through due process. And then we'll never have to get into this sort of situations.
Is it just, I like to, you know, once in a while differ, and I beg to differ on this.
Sure.
Is it just about putting the right people in the right positions? How about being a listening leader? Because sometimes those people you appoint might have an idea that might not necessarily sit well with you, but it might be a solution. Should that also be something we should consider?
Absolutely. You know, putting the right people in the right positions, you know, listening to the people, listening to experts, listening to people who might help you, all of those. You know, there's so many lessons to be learned from this, you know, and I just hope that we learn these lessons. In the issue of transparency, the issue of doing due diligence. How did we get here? Did you not know? Because, you know, one question I keep asking is, no one has told us what exactly went wrong. All we were told was, oh, there was a disagreement and then you had to pull out of it. But from experience and from the stories we keep hearing, it could just be a case of the company refusing to give kickbacks. It could be a case of, you know, why has anyone not told us what exactly went wrong? You know, because Nigeria is notorious for coming out of contract here and there every now and then. You know, they are not telling us the full story. We need to learn to do due diligence. Were we not able to provide the wet gas that the company needed from the beginning? How did we not know that we will not be able to do that? Were the right government agencies carried along? All of this, you know, needs to come to public domain. We need to understand what exactly went down, you know, for us to learn from this. Absolutely. Interesting.
Well, let's move on to the Nation newspaper. Top story here says $9.6 billion judgment. Federal Executive Council didn't okay the contract, says ex-AGF. We're playing the blame game again this morning. South governors reject NDDC nominees. Bello polls 3,091 to win Kogi APC ticket. And still on the Nation newspaper, top right, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway closes on Monday. Police to recruit 40,000 constables. Gunmen brutally murder Catholic priest, and Virgin van Dijk is UEFA Player of the Year. Let's start with the issue of recruitment of police. Now, we all know the issue of insecurity that we're handling in the country right now. I mean, literally everywhere, where it's north, south, east, and west. And I think last year we had 6,000. Mr. President okayed 6,000 new recruitments into the police, and now we're having 40,000 constables. Is that enough to deal with the issue? And let's not also forget the issue of police brutality and the unnecessary harassment of innocent citizens. So the guys who are coming in, what is the precedence that they're learning or going to learn from?
So I know, I mean, we can look at, I'm a student of history, and I know that at the turn of the century in the UK, Robert Peel is a famous, that's what was a famous police reformer. So he looked at the police as a whole, and he basically put structures in place to make sure that they had like it was performance related, and they understood what the metrics were and the measures and objectives were to get to those positions. And they were paid salaries that were commensurate to the efforts that they put forward on a daily basis. It's not an easy job. We all know how stressful it is. You leave your family, you never know what is going to happen in the course of a day, and I think we don't give them enough credit in terms of what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, especially as it relates to crime in Nigeria. We all know how rampant that is.
Yeah, I agree with that to a very large extent. You know, the issue of recruiting 40,000 constables. Yes, you asked whether the question whether it's enough. It's not enough, but it's certainly the right step in the right direction. You know, we need more. And one thing I've always advocated is that, look, our attitude towards the police as a people needs to change. We need to see them as collaborators. We need to seek ways to engage them the more. You know, one thing I've advocated before is that, you know, we have, for example, the National Youth Service Corps. What happens if, of course, because apart from police officers, you also need administrative staffs that work with these guys. What happens if you allow one or two corps members to support them? You know, any opportunity to, engage them, and just make sure that, because they are part and parcel of the society, they are a very, very, they're very vital, segment, a very vital component in that sense. So we need to engage them more. We need to support them. We need to understand the sacrifices they are making for us as a people. And so yes, we definitely need to win more police officers. Definitely.
So we the people, we do understand, because who do you call when you get into any trouble? It's the police. But then we're not the ones who should be equipping them, who should be taking care of their welfare, but we are the recipients of the frustrations that come as a result of them not being able to access those welfare packages. So again, my question is it just recruiting these people that will solve our problems? Because we know that the police officers who still buy their own kits, they literally do everything for themselves. So these new guys that you're putting into this system, how do you intend to change the course of things to benefit them and the guys who have been there before? Or is it just going to be the same kind of policing that we're seeing every other day?
That's a vital question. So when the issue of reforming the police force comes to mind, you know, everything people just talk about is, you know, state police, but it's deeper than that. Like the issues you've raised, you know, how they are funded. The issue of, I mean, it is laughable that we see a news of police officers paying for their own kits. Like you said, you know, if, you know, things do not drastically change, you know, whoever they're going to be bringing in, we still have to follow through with what they made on ground, and that's a huge challenge.
I don't want us to keep browbeating the Nigerian government and everything. But I mean, in the last year, there are certain steps that they have taken that have shown that they have listened to us, and they are trying to make changes. I mean, if you look at the response time, you know, that they've put out, the response time is faster. For a lot of they've put out the rapid response teams. They've put out technology. They've tried to sort of integrate.
What technologies?
They've tried to integrate. So they have the app. They have a police app at the moment. So if you find if you're in a situation where you witness crime, you basically take a video or a picture and you can upload it onto the app. And then it has the
How many people have access to the internet in Nigeria that could take a picture or a video and start uploading it
so penetration, right? So penetration for mobile data, right, in Nigeria increases at an average of 5% every year. So at least they know, even if you may not necessarily have the numbers that we're looking at right now, we know that they are looking, at least there's a level of planning that's gone into them having to implement that particular plan. I don't think we should just fold our arms and say, okay, we don't have enough penetration in terms of mobile data technology, so we're not going to just move in that direction. That is the future. That is the world is going to. If at least they're showing that they are taking steps that will lead us to a particular place in the next 4 or 5 years.
How about training and retraining the officers, the issue of corruption, the issue.
So that's what I explained. Especially, going back again to Robert Peel, when he was looking at police reform, one of the things he wanted to look at was to make sure that at the recruitment level, that they are hiring people that they have like a manual or a book that they can use for new recruits.
Robert Peel was in a society that was more organized than the one we find ourselves in. I'm not in any way trying to...
No, but we can't...
Yes, there are people who read these books. We hear these things. We travel out.
It's not about...
Some of our police officers are trained in Scotland Yard, but when we come back, we have to localize everything, whether we like it or not.
That's the whole point. So
how do we deal with the localized... I have just 2 minutes, I know this. How do we localize and make sure that even the woman who does not have access to internet can report crime and not... be left to solve her problem alone?
If I had finished my explanation of what I think the police has gotten right in the last year, one of the things that they did get right as well, apart from the technology they put in place, was also the number of numbers and access to numbers that you can use to call. So it wouldn't just be the technology. There was also a hybrid. It was also support with comms as well. So you have both a double-edged approach. So that way you know that even if you don't have enough of the funds and you still witness crime, you can still report as an eyewitness.
You said they put that in place in the last year or so.
Yes.
How has that translated into the performance? Because as far as I know...
I was about to ask her that what is the percentage of the response that, have they been able to do a poll and see how the results are?
So yes, I agree. I totally agree. In terms of monitoring the progress of what they have done, that is a different matter altogether. But in terms of at least having the idea and saying, look, we know there's a problem. We are trying to solve it. They are not just folding their arms and it was not business as usual. There are at least active steps that are being taken. I think that's the first step.
If I didn't know you, I'd think you're a police spokesperson. All right, I want to say thank you to you, Ife Oji. She's a legal practitioner. Daniel Odupe, thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. It's been an interesting conversation. All right, I am Maryann Duke Okon, and it's been Off the Press. Enjoy the rest of our programs.